Hi there. You're watching Reddit Confessions, and this one's going to hit differently. Let's begin. She whispered, I'll return later. And I didn't say, okay. I didn't say, be safe. I didn't even ask, where. Instead, I looked her straight in the eyes, for the first time in what felt like years, and said calmly, take your time, there's nothing left for you here anymore. That was the last thing I ever said to her. I remember watching her fingers tremble slightly around the doorknob. She hesitated, just for a second. Like she was waiting for me to break, or cry, or say something that would justify her staying. I didn't. She left. The house didn't echo when the door clicked shut. But it felt loud. Like it shook something loose in me that I didn't know I was still holding on to. And that's when I did it. I stood up. Walked over to the guest room closet. Pulled out the dusty cardboard box with the yellow tape on it, the one marked, do not open. It wasn't hers. It was mine. And it was time. Inside that box were all the things I'd avoided. Phone screenshots. An old receipt from a wine bar I'd never visited. A hotel key card tucked inside a novel with her lipstick stain on the inside cover. A birthday card, not addressed to me. Signed Len and C. C, who the hell was C? 3 weeks ago, I didn't know. Now I do. And no, I didn't hire a PI. I didn't break into her phone. I didn't follow her. She told me. She told me everything, just not directly. It started with a voicemail. Left on our landline, which neither of us had used in years. Some guy, voice like gravel and whiskey, said. Hey, babe. You left your charger. Don't worry, I'll keep it warm until next week. Love you. I was in the kitchen cooking spaghetti. Stirring sauce. That message broke something in me so completely I didn't even turn the stove off. Just stood there, wooden spoon in hand, listening again. And again. And again. I didn't confront her. I didn't throw plates. I didn't scream. I wrote it all down. Every word. Every syllable. And I waited. Like a man standing in the middle of a thunderstorm, knowing lightning will hit but still hoping it misses by an inch. That moment, when she whispered, I'll return later, that was the lightning. The only thing I regret. Not telling her sooner. Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Sometimes, the betrayal doesn't start with infidelity. It starts with silence. And silence lived in this house long before she started disappearing at night. When I said, there's nothing left for you here anymore, I thought I meant it. I thought those words would feel like a full stop at the end of a bitter sentence. But in the hours that followed, when the silence set in, I realized I had only opened a door I didn't fully understand. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat at the edge of our bed, staring at the floor like something might crawl out from under it and explain what the hell just happened. It's strange how your body remembers things before your mind catches up. The way I could still hear the echo of her keys always landing in the same ceramic bowl by the entryway. The way the hallway light stayed on just a bit longer when she walked out, like it was begging her to reconsider. And the way our bedroom still smelled like her, orange peel and some kind of vanilla lotion she used after every bath, except the bottle had been missing for weeks. I knew she wasn't coming back. Not really. People don't come back when they've already built a second life somewhere else. Around midnight, I did something I hadn't done in years. I checked under the bed. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me thought I'd find answers there, or maybe I was just looking for an excuse not to sleep. But there it was, tucked in the far corner, a shoe box I hadn't seen in over 6 years. It was covered in dust, but the lid was loose, like it had been opened recently. My hands were shaking before I even touched it. Inside were tiny things. Intimate things. A dried flower I gave her on our 2nd anniversary. A ticket stub from the lake concert where she cried when the fireworks started. A photo booth strip of us kissing like teenagers, back when we didn't know what heartbreak felt like. But beneath those memories was something I hadn't expected, a folded note. The paper was crinkled, the ink faint, but I recognized the handwriting instantly, hers. The date on the top said April 3rd, 2 years ago. The note wasn't meant for me. See, I don't know how long I can keep pretending. He still looks at me like I'm magic, and it kills me. I know it's wrong, but you feel more real to me than he ever did. I want to choose you. I just don't know how yet. I read it twice. 3 times. Then I just sat there, holding it like it was some sort of evidence in a trial I didn't realize I was losing. And the worst part? She kept it. She chose to hide it in our room. In our bed. In the place where we made love, fought, cried, and built the illusion of something sacred. That letter wasn't lost. It was planted. Like a backup plan. A souvenir from the betrayal she was preparing for. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and finally turned off the cold pot of spaghetti sauce. It had congealed, hardened, like my insides. I didn't eat. Couldn't. Instead, I opened my laptop and started typing. Not a message to her. Not a goodbye letter. Not even a confession. I opened a blank document and titled it, All the Times I Knew But Said Nothing. That list is already 3 pages long. And I've barely scratched the surface. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always explode like a bomb. Sometimes it seeps in like water under a floorboard, silent, constant, and capable of rotting the entire foundation before you ever hear a sound. That night, after reading the letter, I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I sat in the living room with all the lights off, except for the flickering glow from the neighbor's porch camera across the street. Every few minutes, a moth would hit the window like it was trying to get in or trying to wake me up. I couldn't tell which. I didn't go looking for more proof. I didn't need to. That one letter was the kind of truth that doesn't unravel, it claws at you. I think what hurt most wasn't that she lied. It's that she wrote her truth down for someone else to read. And that she left it beneath our bed like a loaded trap waiting to go off. Who does that? By sunrise, I was still in the same chair. I heard the floor creak upstairs, our dog, Daisy, pacing around confused, wondering why her leash hadn't come off the hook. She used to bark when Lenora came home late. Then she stopped. Dogs know. They always know before we do. I made a cup of coffee I didn't drink and opened the laundry room door for Daisy. She didn't go out. Just stood there staring toward the hallway, ears low. I turned to look. Nothing there. But that's when I realized something else had changed. Her shoes were gone. Every pair of heels. Boots. Even the sandals she wore for exactly 3 days last summer before deciding they were too middle-aged Florida divorcee. Her drawer was empty too. Not dramatically, just quietly. As if she hadn't left, but slipped away. I called her. Once. Straight to voicemail. Then I texted. You forgot the cinnamon candle. She didn't reply. Not then. Not after. Not even when I sent the second message an hour later that just said. You could have told me you loved him. Still nothing. That night, I was in the bedroom packing a few of my own things. I don't know why. I had nowhere to go, and the house was technically mine, but I couldn't breathe in there. It was like every object had her fingerprints burned into it. The mirror. The closet door. The edge of the dresser she leaned against when she pretended to be tired to avoid talking. That's when I saw it, the bruise. Not on me. Not on her. On the wall. Behind the dresser, when I pulled it slightly away to unplug the lamp, I noticed a dent. A long, horizontal scuff, faint, but clearly from a suitcase wheel. Someone had dragged something heavy through there fast. And recently. I stared at it for a while. Then I whispered to the empty room, "People don't trip over ghosts." I didn't know what I meant by that when I said it. But later that night, while scrolling through photos on my phone, trying to find some sign of when things started, I realized I had become one. A ghost in my own life. Quiet, unnoticed, transparent. Always there, but never seen. And she hadn't tripped over me. She'd stepped around me. Like I was already gone. By the fourth night, I stopped locking the front door. I didn't do it out of forgetfulness, I did it because part of me wanted something unexpected to happen. A knock. A voice. Maybe even her returning to grab whatever she left behind. Closure wears many disguises, and I was desperate for any of them. But nothing came. Not even silence. Instead, the house filled with the kind of noise that only exists in your head. The fridge clicking to life suddenly became deafening. Floorboards creaked like footsteps from rooms no one entered. The sound of my own breathing. It turned into a clock ticking backward. That night, I finally opened her laptop. I know. I shouldn't have. I swore to myself I wouldn't cross that line, but the moment you realize your life's been built on a lie, your definition of privacy begins to shift. It was on the kitchen counter, still logged in. The wallpaper was a photo of the lake, not our lake, not the one we used to walk around on Sundays. A different one. A newer memory that didn't belong to me. I clicked on her emails. There were no dramatic love letters. No hidden folders. Just a chain of messages with someone named C. Bell. Always short, always vague, but always intimate in their timing. Things like, 7 p.m. sharp, don't forget your sketchbook, or, tell the hotel you're alone. Safer that way. The last message was from 3 days ago. It simply read, bring the book. I didn't know what that meant. But I knew exactly where to look. In our living room, on the second shelf, third book from the left, was The Fake Spine. It was a hollowed-out copy of The Bell Jar. I gave her that book back when she told me she didn't believe in happy endings. I thought it was symbolic. Turns out, it was just practical. Inside was a hotel key card. Room 812. A boutique hotel 2 towns over. I sat on the couch holding that key, feeling like it might burn through my skin. I wasn't angry. I was, beyond that. There's a point where betrayal stops making you feel rage and starts making you feel nothing at all. Like your soul just folds itself inward to avoid breaking. I should have thrown it away. But I didn't. The next morning, I shaved. I dressed like a man who still had purpose. And I drove to the hotel without thinking. Not like a man chasing his wife. More like someone driving to a funeral, and realizing too late that he's attending his own. The lobby was quiet. Warm. Smelled like leather and jasmine. I asked about room 812, pretending to be her brother. I'm not proud of it. But the receptionist didn't question me. Just handed me the spare key like she'd done this a dozen times before. I stood outside that room for 11 minutes. I counted. And then, with one breath and no hesitation, I opened the door. But no one was inside. The room was cold. Curtains drawn. One suitcase still zipped tight in the corner. And there, on the desk by the window, was a notebook. Leather-bound. With a familiar handwriting scrawled across the first page. To the man I didn't have the courage to leave, and the one who gave me the excuse. I didn't open it. Not then. I took a photo of the first page. Closed the cover. And walked out. Because sometimes, the story we think we need isn't the one that saves us, it's the one that finally breaks what's left. I didn't go home after I left the hotel. I couldn't. I drove around aimlessly for hours, ending up parked in front of an old laundromat I hadn't stepped inside since I was 19. I don't know why I stopped there. Maybe I thought I could somehow wash all this out of me. Guilt. Bitterness. That suffocating sense of being utterly, completely replaceable. The notebook was still in my passenger seat. I hadn't opened it. I didn't want to. Something about the way she titled the first page, "To the man I didn't have the courage to leave," told me that nothing inside it would heal me. Whatever was in there wasn't an apology. It was an explanation. And I wasn't ready for that. But I wasn't ready for what happened next either. Around 6:40 p.m. my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I stared at it for a moment, thumb hovering, until I finally answered without saying anything. There was a pause. Then a man's voice, low and cautious, said, "Is this Curtis?" I felt my chest tighten. "Who's asking?" Another pause. Then, "I think we've met. Once. Briefly. At her office holiday party. She introduced me as a coworker." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence told him he was right. He continued, softer now, like he regretted dialing. "I didn't know about you. Not at first." There it was, the cliché line. I expected it. Still, it landed like a punch. "She said you were separated. Said it was over but complicated." I believed her. "Why are you calling me?" I asked, my voice cracked and dry. "Because I saw her today," he said. "She looked shaken. She told me she left you. But she didn't say why. Then I found the letter she wrote you. The one she left in the hotel room. You weren't supposed to see it. That snapped something in me. She left it wide open on a desk. She wanted it to be found." "No," he said, and he sounded certain. "She wanted to feel guilty without facing the consequences. You were never supposed to read it. That's who she is." I sat there, heart pounding. "Why are you telling me this now?" And his voice changed, no longer defensive. Just sad. "Because I see what she did to you. And I see what she's doing to me." The line went quiet after that. I don't even remember hanging up. I just remember gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles went white. I finally reached over and opened the notebook. It wasn't a diary. It wasn't a confession. It was a manual. Page after page of thoughts, justifications, daydreams. Paragraphs starting with, "If he ever finds out," and, "When I leave, I'll tell him it's not about another man, it's about me." Plans. Scripts. Escape routes. There was even a checklist. Pack in stages. Delete texts. Avoid eye contact when lying. Cry if necessary. Cry. If necessary. There was a drawing too, a small pencil sketch of a cabin in the woods. Our cabin. The one we visited only once, years ago. Underneath it, she'd scribbled, "Where I learned how small happiness can feel when it's not shared with the right person." I didn't know who I was reading about anymore. This wasn't my wife. This was someone who had watched me kiss her goodnight and tucked these thoughts behind a smile that I now realized was never real. By the time I drove home, it was past midnight. The porch light had burned out. The house looked foreign, like a place I used to rent but never owned. I didn't go inside. I slept in the car. And for the first time in my life, I started wondering if maybe the reason she replaced me so easily was because I was never really there to begin with. I woke up with sunlight bleeding through the windshield and a cramp in my lower back that made me feel older than I was. The car windows were fogged from my breath, and Daisy was barking from inside the house. She'd probably waited by the door all night, wondering why her idiot of an owner never came back inside. The street looked the same. Familiar. Like the world hadn't noticed anything had fallen apart. That was the worst part of grief no one prepares you for, how unconcerned the world is with your personal disaster. The mail still gets delivered. Neighbors still wave. Garbage trucks still come on Tuesdays. But I wasn't the same. I walked up to the front door and didn't open it right away. I just stood there staring at it, wondering how many times she had crossed that threshold pretending everything was fine, meals half-cooked, phone screen down, fake laughs in the hallway, while holding entire conversations in her head with someone else. When I finally stepped inside, I was greeted by a silence that didn't feel peaceful. It felt hollow. I passed by the cinnamon candle she had forgotten to pack, still sitting on the windowsill, a thin layer of dust forming at the rim like it had aged 10 years overnight. I fed Daisy, poured some food into a bowl that used to have both our initials written in Sharpie on the bottom. The ink had faded. I hadn't noticed until now. Then I sat on the couch, opened the notebook again, and this time I read every single word. No skipping. No breaks. That's when I found my name. Not just once, several times, always paired with some observation that felt like I was being autopsied by someone who already mourned me. Curtis is too passive. He waits for life to hand him answers. He doesn't live in a room, he fills it with silence and routines. Curtis loves me, but not the real me. Just the version I pretended to be in the beginning. He's more in love with our memories than with me now. He thinks if he stays quiet long enough, I'll come back to him. He doesn't realize I already left. Months ago. I read those lines over and over again, each time thinking maybe I'd find something redemptive in between them. But there was nothing. No, but he's kind, no, but he tries. Just cold, clinical dissection. Like she'd already held the funeral in her head, and I hadn't been invited. I closed the book and laughed. A sharp, dry laugh that startled Daisy and echoed too loud in the empty house. It wasn't funny, not at all. But something about being so thoroughly misunderstood by someone you gave your whole life to makes you lose your grip on normal reactions. I went upstairs, opened our closet, and started packing. Not her things, mine. I wasn't leaving in some dramatic way, no speeches, no last letters. I just couldn't breathe in this space anymore. The air was laced with her memory like a toxic fog. And that's when I found it. Tucked inside the back of her old makeup bag, a small, unmarked envelope. Inside were 2 photos. One of me, standing in our backyard in the middle of winter, staring at something with a half-smile. The other was of her, taken by someone else. She was sitting at a cafe, sunlight in her hair, looking away from the camera, smiling at whoever held it. I flipped it over. No date. No message. Just a red lipstick kiss mark, pressed into the back like a secret signature. That kiss wasn't for me. And for the first time since this all began, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't manipulative. She was done. Done long before I even started asking questions. And now, all I had left were echoes in an empty house, a loyal dog, and a notebook full of confessions that didn't include a single apology. That night, I closed all the curtains at noon and didn't open them again. Because the sunlight didn't feel warm anymore. It felt like exposure. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat on the floor of the guest room, not because I needed space, but because it was the only room she never really touched. No perfume, no memories, no layers of her voice soaked into the drywall. Just blank, boring, beige walls. I found comfort in that. In the absence of her. At around 2 a.m., I opened a box I hadn't looked through since before the wedding. It was filled with old notebooks, scribbled ideas from when I thought I'd write a novel one day. I used to jot down random thoughts, character sketches, scraps of dreams that never made it past the first sentence. Back then, I believed stories were how people stayed alive, how they left fingerprints on time. It's ironic. Now the only story I'm telling is about how I disappeared inside my own marriage and never noticed until I was gone. There was one notebook near the bottom that I didn't recognize. Smaller. Thinner. Torn at the corner. Inside were letters. All written by me. To her. Handwritten love letters. Most of them from years ago. Some from our first trip together. Others from when she got sick and I stayed up all night making soup from scratch because she swore canned broth tasted like sadness. And one, dated only 10 months ago, written the night she came home late and I knew something was off but said nothing anyway. I had written. I don't know what's changing between us. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's you. But I'd rather sit in silence beside you every day for the rest of my life than ever hear you laugh with someone else the way you used to laugh with me. I read it 3 times. And then I did something that surprised even me. I tore it out and threw it away. Not in anger. Not even in grief. But because that letter wasn't to her. Not anymore. It was to someone who didn't exist. That man, the man who would accept half love, shadows of affection, and silence as a placeholder for loyalty, he was gone. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something else. The next morning, I went through her side of the closet with a black trash bag. I didn't throw anything away. I just relocated it. Packed it all into the guest room. Every scarf, every mismatched earring, every blouse I'd seen in photos that didn't include me. I left one thing behind, the gray hoodie she always stole from me and wore on rainy Sundays. That, she could keep. It still smelled like her. And weirdly, I wanted it to. I made breakfast. Not out of hunger. Just to remind myself what routine used to feel like when it wasn't just damage control. Toast. Scrambled eggs. The coffee came out too bitter, but I drank it anyway. Then I sat down and drafted a letter. Not to her. To me. It started with, Curtis, you didn't fail. You just kept showing up for someone who already walked out. I didn't finish the letter. Not yet. I folded it and placed it in the drawer beside my bed. I'll come back to it when I have something worth saying. By noon, I got a message from an unknown number. Just 3 words. I need closure. I didn't reply. Because people who need closure rarely offer it in return. And I had already learned my lesson the hardest way possible: when someone wants to leave, let them go. But when they come back asking for understanding after burning the bridge they walked away on, you don't hand them water. You hand them the match they dropped, and let them remember what they set fire to. It's been 4 weeks since she left. 4 weeks since that whisper at the door, that cinnamon candle still burning on the windowsill, and that version of myself, small, hollow, quiet, finally disappeared. Funny thing is, I thought I'd never survive the silence. I thought I'd drown in it. But something changed. It didn't happen all at once. Healing doesn't come with fireworks or some grand gesture. It's not cinematic. It's Tuesday mornings when you wake up and realize you haven't thought about them in 3 hours. It's making coffee and not hearing their voice in the background. It's folding laundry without wondering if they're coming back for that one hoodie they always wore. It's peace, and it arrives quietly. So quietly that, one morning, you catch yourself humming while brushing your teeth, and you don't even notice until you're halfway through the tune. That happened to me last Friday. I found a new routine. I walk Daisy every morning now, not because it fills the time, but because it feels good. She stops in front of this small bookstore downtown where the owner always leaves a bowl of water outside. We started going in. One day, I left with a novel. The next, with a notebook. I started writing again. Not stories about betrayal, or pain, or what I lost, but about what I found. About how even when someone carves a hole into you, it doesn't stay empty forever. You fill it. With new things. Quiet mornings. Warm sun. A dog who never left. A stranger at the cafe who says good morning like they mean it. A few days ago, I saw her again. She was across the street, waiting for a ride, holding a coffee cup that didn't suit her. She looked tired. Not in a cruel way, just unfinished. Like someone still figuring out if the story she chased was worth the ending she chose. She didn't see me. And I didn't wave. Not out of anger, but because I didn't need to be seen anymore. I already knew who I was. I'm not the man she left. I'm the man who came back from it. So if you're listening to this and holding on to someone who already let go, hear this from someone who lived through it. You don't have to be the ghost in someone else's story. You get to write your own. Thanks for watching this story on Reddit Confessions. If something in this story reminded you of a moment in your own life, a message, a silence, a turning point, drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away without looking back.